Today is Tuesday, February 18th, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Podcast.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
All right. Hello, and welcome to the Beer Temple Podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike Shalau of Is Was Brewing, and I'm here with Chris Quinn of the Beer Temple, your other host. Chris, how are you doing?
Doing well. Just letting Serge fade that in perfectly. As everyone listening, they knew. They could just tell from the subtle fade.
Thoughtful.
Subtle but thoughtful,
subtle,
crisp fade.
Perfect fade.
That Serge is definitely in the house, and I'm not also playing producer tonight. So
Maybe we'll find that out with some other...
yeah, apologies in advance.
Future flubs.
Yeah, apologies in advance. So yeah, we're here. We're back in studio BT, and yeah, we've got some guests here. We got some virtual guests today. But before we get to that, people love the banter. That's all the feedback
all
we
the
get.
Feedback we get.
People love the banter.
We love the meandering, old-school radio show-like banter.
Yes. Yeah, that was the feedback. So how are you on this crisp Chicago day?
I'm great, Chris. I got my identity stolen yesterday, which
Cool.
honestly, terrible person to choose. Stole a lot of debt, bud. So I've been on the phone with various banks, canceling every single credit card and debit card, and it feels very weird to basically have the same banking system as the 60s.
What do you mean?
I have to go to the bank and ask them and say, "May I have my money, please?" And then they're like, "Give us some proof," and I'll be like, I don't have the card you gave me anymore."
Right.
So. And it's my wife's birthday coming up in a couple days, so we'll see if I'm able to even buy her dinner.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm killing it.
Story.
I'm doing a great job at life in general.
It's okay. You'll get better.
Yeah, I've changed all my passwords to the same password.
Oh, you didn't
Just
learn
to help
the first
them out.
time. Yeah.
If they need this identity, they can have all of it.
Right.
They want the TTB login, you can have it. You want
the Well, I genuinely am sorry about that. That sucks.
Happens.
Yeah. Well,
The dumbest of us.
yeah, it's hasn't happened to me, but not for anything I've done.
Right.
Just haven't kind of come up in that lotto kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You probably won't. You'll be fine.
Thanks for the jinx there.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah. Have we talked since the big day?
The big day. You got
One of the biggest
spring
day.
training started the Phillies, right?
No, not that. All right. Well, we can move on.
Okay.
Super Bowl.
I
Go
don't know.
Birds.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. Anyway.
Go Birds.
Yeah. So the good thing that prevents our banter is being embarrassed by the guests that we have on.
Yeah.
To have stupid banter.
Get
in front
better
of them.
guests, and then the banter goes.
Yeah. The banter.
No
goes
offense to
down.
any of the other guests we've had, but
Right. So we got a couple guests. We should probably just get right into it and introduce them. We always introduce our guests the same way, and that is order of seniority. The only type of seniority that we care about, which is how many times you've been on the show. So, senior member is Gabriel Magliaro of Half Acre. What's up, Gabe? How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, and great to be here.
Oh, thanks. See, he's a pro. He's done it before.
Yeah.
What's new with you, Gabe?
Not much. Easing into the year, I'll say. Freezing like everyone else, and opted for a slow melt tonight to enjoy this conversation with you all.
Yeah. We were going to talk about beers that we've had that we've enjoyed, and I was going to be a complete suck up and say slow melt because
Thank you.
It's genuinely very, very good. I legitimately love it. Have you had it yet, Mike?
I don't believe so.
Timbo reminiscent to me. So I think,
Speak my language.
yeah, exactly.
You're a Timbo fan?
I'm a huge Timbo fan.
Yeah, North Highland Park.
Highland Park, yeah.
Highland Park.
Yeah, in L.A.
The other park.
Yes.
Not North Park.
Yeah. No, it's solid.
Awesome. I'll have to get one during the show, probably.
Yeah, and it's a lager, right? Like Timbo, right, Gabe?
It does have a lager yeast strain involved.
Okay. So I won't call it a lager, but there is a lager yeast strain involved. Got it. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Well, we shouldn't bury the lead. We should probably get right into our second guest.
Yeah, the rookie.
The rookie. So first-time guests introduce themselves. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and let everybody know who you are, take it away. You're up.
I'm Sam Calagione, brewer, founder of Dogfish. This is awkward. I thought I was on like the Italian-American
I'm only half Italian.
podcast. Me and Gabe.
Yeah, it's all right. I got a little Italian in me as well. Are you in Delaware?
You guys, Mike, Chris, Gabe.
Yeah.
I am in beautiful coastal Delaware. I'm about 3 blocks down the canal here from our Dogfish Hotel in Lewis, and then our locations are one town south in Rehoboth and one town west in Milton. So yes, I'm calling in from coastal DE, right down the bay from where Gabe grew up.
Oh, nice.
Actually, Chris, you're a Blue Hen, so we're right up the road from us.
My family, my in-laws have a place in Fenwick Island, so I go there.
The T-shirt shops are?
Yeah, that's where some of the finest T-shirt shops. Well, that's just south in beautiful Ocean City, Maryland.
Got it.
The finest, choicest T-shirts. That's where I got Mike's wedding present.
That's right.
Yeah, was from one of those T-shirt shops.
It was.
Yeah.
Once she became my wife, she's like, okay, this is acceptable now.
Right.
Well, you did give me the Booty Hunter shirt for my wedding, not the MILF Hunter shirt. That was for earlier.
Right. When your one license expired, I got you.
Yeah,
I got
Those
you.
are totally different occasions, like hunting occasions. It's kind of like deer and moose season.
They're very different licenses.
And those shirts are also, like, you know how stamps are technically legal tender? Those shirts are technically licenses. So you are licensed to hunt booty, when you have that shirt on.
Great.
Or your wife. Either
That's
one.
right. She's actually the
I
only
gave
one
it to
who's
both
worn
of you.
Yeah.
So
she did wear it for about 35 seconds to take one picture to send to you.
Yeah. But anyway, yes. Fenwick Island, Delaware. Beautiful place. In fact, that's where I had my first orange crush ever, which is a big thing there. And Sam, you were thoughtful enough to send us out a little care package, one of which is your crush, your blood orange crush. They're huge in coastal Delaware. Have you ever heard of crushes before, Mike?
No.
They're huge there. They're like everywhere. Every restaurant makes them.
What is it?
You should probably ask Sam what a crush is.
Sam, what's a crush?
So those of you tuning in tonight that have been in the Scrapple Belt, which is a geography that allows the shit that can't go in a hot dog to be sold in local stores, I'm dead set in the center of also the Crush Belt. So I'm in the Scrapple Belt and the Crush Belt. The Crush Belt kind of runs from the northern Jersey beaches down to, I'd say, Virginia Beach. But yeah, the heart of it, as Chris said, is kind of like Dewey Beach, Delaware. It's like our Girls Gone Wild town or boys. And then down to Ocean City, Maryland is kind of the Crush epicenter. And it's basically just super fresh, half of a grapefruit or orange or some big citrus fruit squeezed like as you're watching it as the drinker, so you're not you're not getting womp or fake shit. And then they add different spirits and like a pop of like Squirt or 7-Up to give it a little carbonation. But it's basically just fresh fruit and usually vodka or tequila. And ours is mango and blood orange. But we don't have to talk beyond beer tonight. If you guys want to stay on beer, we love them both here, Dogfish.
I mean, it was fitting just because, we were talking Delaware, and it is you go there, and it's it's like Everyone's drinking crushes. They are
Kind of like
ubiquitous.
Malort. It's like the Bizarro Malort for you guys.
Yes. Yeah. It is good because it is very localized there. Because
Sure.
no one else outside of there has ever heard of it. You go there, and that's all anyone is drinking at all, like the kind of beach resorty
Cool.
restaurants and bars.
I feel like
and stuff
Malort's
that.
out of the bag. Everyone now knows of Malort. Crush maybe a little still under the radar.
It's a beautiful thing. You guys have a indigenous aperitif. How many, or whatever you call it, like digestif? How many cities in America, have that?
Yeah.
Not many.
You have a breakfast meat. You have two breakfast meats, really, because you have pork roll as well. So.
That's one of the nicest compliments I've ever gotten.
Don't get me started.
Oh, you're a pork roll fan,
I
Gabe?
bet that's
Who
Gabe's
isn't?
territory. Gabe,
Yeah. I definitely grew up in the heart. Trent, New Jersey is
Got
really
it.
where is an indigenous country for pork roll.
Or is it
and,
Taylor ham to you? Because it's the same
I mean-
stuff, right? It just depends where you're from.
Taylor ham is really the proper term.
Oh.
Pork roll. It's what we use in the streets.
Got it. Well, I'm
but
nothing
yeah.
if not a product of the
It's like
streets.
slang?
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's slang. It's comfort talk between friends, and pork roll, egg and cheese sandwiches. If you're a purist, just straight pork roll. Some do pork roll and cheese. It's unlike really any other
Yeah.
processed meat.
It's great. And I hope you've gotten your kids indoctrinated into pork roll, Gabe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, mine too.
I have a Taylor ham casing framed in the basement. So
you make it sound like that stuff doesn't have a shelf life that you can just
oh man, does it have a shelf life? Yes. You don't have to refrigerate it really.
All right. Sam, we skipped over. Is there anything that you've had lately? Any beers that you've enjoyed especially or that you're looking forward to trying?
So I pulled one out of my Mariah's beer fridge that's kind of from your neck of the woods, right over Newark, Delaware's line is southern PA, kind of near where Victory started, Doylestown, but there's a little town called Dallastown now, not Doylestown, and they're called Midnight Oil Brewing Company. They're doing some nice stuff with lagers and hazies, and so I'm having their Love Seed Lager. So Love Seed Mama Jump was a big regional brand here. It was kind of or beer or band. It was kind of our Malort of beach bands, and they rocked out pretty hard when Mariah and I were coming up and sneaking into the restaurants with our fake IDs, including Dogfish Head. We used to be called the Ruffled Duck, and I used to sneak in there with my fake ID with my wife and listen to Love Seed Mama Jump. So I'm drinking with some backwards looking love towards Northern Delaware, little brewery up there.
Wow. Wow. Love Seed Mama Jump. Jeez, haven't.
Taking you back?
Yeah, man. Stone Balloon. Yeah.
You know this.
Wow.
You are.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Flashbacks. Very cool. I also noticed. I have to mention you sent along the latest iteration of the Grateful Dead beers, which is it's funny. And I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who have like a relative. Like I never really hear from him ever. I don't think he drinks beer at all. But when The American Beauty came out, was just like incessantly hounding me about getting that beer. And someone was walking by the bar the other day, like right after I'd opened up the box and taken out that can. It has the Steal Your Face on it. And I mean, it wasn't on the table for more than 10 minutes when an older gentleman was like, "That's an amazing can. Do you sell that?" And I had to kind of go through the whole thing. And, made me think of my uncle. Went on to Facebook Messenger, his preferred method of communication.
Sure.
And,
whose isn't?
And said, "Hey, Uncle Dave, what's up? How you doing?"
Yeah.
So, yeah. So thank
Sell
you
it to
again.
him? Did you sell him your can?
No, that would be, that was mine. No.
You traded it to him for some ganja goo balls.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait,
Anything?
did Gabe say your beer? Did Gabe you say your guest beer?
He did. He was a homer. He just said his own beer.
Nice.
That's just what I happen to be drinking right now, but I don't have a guest beer. I'm not even supposed to be here right now. I'm supposed to be on the East Coast, but I'm home. So it was
Bummer.
little bit of a snafu, so I'm unprepared in a way, but yeah.
It's okay.
The best beer that I had recently that is not Half Acre is Suncatcher, so that's like a double, goober, twice sending, good things our way. But yeah. Suncatcher,
So
current
you guys
IPA.
all know Suncatcher. I don't know what brewery is that.
That's my very good friend and business partner, Matt Gallagher's got a little passion brewery a bit south of us in the city called Suncatcher. It's a tiny little stamp on the map. And anyway, he's making some cool beers over there. His most recent batch of IPA is Chef's Kiss. So
Nice.
yeah, really nice.
Very cool. Yeah, I was gonna go slow melt, but then we popped on this Ondex Volbeer on draft,
The hell
and
is?
it must have been exceptionally fresh because, I mean, talk about chef's kiss.
They know what they're doing out there.
Yeah,
When you get it fresh, it's some of those you drink, you look at it, you're like, what was that?
Yeah.
How is that good?
Yeah, exceptionally good.
Yeah.
So if you have the means, I highly recommend you pick one up.
Yeah.
They're very choice.
Come here.
So yeah. Enough of that. We should probably get into the meat of the podcast. We've got. We're going to do it a little bit different. It's not going to be quite as topical, but it's not every day that we have the founder of a pretty monumental craft brewery on the show. So I think we kind of tailored some questions around that and tried to make them
For Gabriel.
inclusive. Yeah, for Gabriel, exactly.
Yeah, we're talking about Half Acre. Right?
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
Suncatcher.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, I mean, just a few questions that I thought, honestly, both of you would be able to weigh in on. And don't worry, we'll weigh in as well. We don't need reason to spout our opinions. Can I lean on you a little bit, Mike, to kick things off? Is there a question in particular that you wanted to start with, or would you like me to kick things off?
I mean, the one that I was most interested in talking about as someone who has developed many recipes for both my own brewery and Pipeworks before that, and dealing with somewhat wacky ingredients following in your wake. How has the process of dealing with the TTB evolved over time? And were there any special incidents of things you were using that they were just like, huh? No one's ever sent that across our desk before. And just, I guess, generally
Right. I mean, the history of Dogfish Head is tied to kind of,
culinary ingredients that exist outside the Reinheitsgebot,
Right.
off-centered ales for off-centered people.
Right.
Right.
And I would imagine there were probably a lot of ingredients that had not been brewed with prior to Dogfish using them. So, yeah.
Yeah, and for context, I think when with Pipeworks doing a lot with fruited beers and wild fermentation, but I think by the era you guys were taking off, they'd already they had a list of accepted ingredients you didn't have to navigate as a one-off.
Right, exactly.
Right, and Gabe, it was 16 years or so young for your brewery. I'm not sure if that was in existence when you started, but for us, there was literally, because there were when Ken Grossman or Sam Adams started, there were less than 100 breweries in the early 80s, but when Dogfish started, there were 600 breweries, but there was the same guy when Sierra started and Anchor started. One guy was running label approval for the TTB, and the same when Dogfish started. It was that same guy, so he was at that seat individually for 20 years. His name was literally Battle.
Battle Martin.
Yes, Battle Martin. Literally the most perfect name human in the.
He was the same dude we dealt with for years. Just him.
Yeah. So imagine me being now I want to add crickets, or now I want to add human saliva, or mace, industrial grade capsicum from India. The ingredients in mace. They're like, what the fuck are you talking about? There were some great conversations, so it was it was very different in that era, but it was almost like the name game now, right? How cathartic it is as brewers when we find a name that the IP's not been protected yet. You put it into Google or Untapped, and you're like, fuck, some little brewery in Spokane already got that one. Cool. But back then, it was like finding an ingredient that no one had used yet and figuring out a way to get the TTB to approve it was kind of analogous to right today finding a name for a beer that's not been used yet. So different, like, cathartic moments, but still fun, like, creative components to our journey.
Would you have to like prove to them that it was safe, or like how how do you probably couldn't afford like lab testing for these things when you were small, but how did you do this? Like, I genuinely in awe and grateful for it.
And I'm sure we each have stories about that. Our proximity to the labs in DC helped us on a couple occasions. We're
Sure.
2 hours away, but they rarely, as you know, test anything physically. It's more they were looking for research and supporting data. But as we grew, like an example would be like monk fruit, which is a natural fruit, but had not been put on the GRAS list for stuff you can drink, just stuff you could eat. So the TTB didn't acknowledge as an ingredient. So we had to spend, I think it was tens of thousands of dollars navigating it from the FDA side over the TTB to be, we're the first brewery to make beer. I think first beverage company to make beer with or something with monk fruit. But by then it was like beg forgiveness set first because we could afford lawyers and specialists for tens of thousands of dollars. Whereas in the 80s or the 90s, it was like, just do it and see if you get. Like I hand Sharpied the word vigor off of 2,000 cases of worldwide stout when they told me vigor's strong and you can't have that on a label in 1999. I'm like, well, if you take away this worldwide stout batch, I'll go out of business. Will you let me sell it if I hand Sharpie every single one off? So we would have these parties at our brew pub where I'd buy everyone drinks if they just sat there with Sharpies. It was kind of like, painting the fence together.
The word vigor, V-I-G, like V-I-G-O-R, so that they thought that would imply like it's a fortuitous drink.
Like intensity equals drunkenness, vigor bad,
Vigor bad.
Wow.
Yeah, it said brewed with a ridiculous amount of dark barley, or ridiculous amount of barley, Vim and vigor. And they left Vim.
They're cool with Vim.
Cool. Yeah, got it.
Vim's cool, but vigor not so much.
Well, everyone uses Vim on its own, so that didn't seem like strange at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got a Vim beer.
Yeah. You get a beer.
It's ironic because I think it was whatever it was back in the early days. Then it got really intense for a while, and I think these days it's actually backed off. They're a little bit more flexible now, based on I think making their own workload a little bit less than it needs to be, and realizing that most of these ingredients that they've been working hard to protect against, it's mostly just fine.
Yeah. It's mostly like I agree, and it's more like about the IP infringement than it is the weird ingredient journey. And I don't know how many breweries you guys have been in where it feels like you're in a hunting lodge, but instead of the skulls of animals, it's cease and desist from Disney and Star Wars,
Mega Man.
The royal cease and desist. Yeah.
Those early days, I loved it. Sam, you guys are part of that first generation forefather group of breweries, and we're a bit later, sort of like in that weird uncle stage. But even then, there are so many things that you approached as a brewery that it was like this gelatinous thing that nobody kind of knew, like, you could do that or not do that. And there was a lot of enjoyment I felt in all that on navigating those unclear waters, and a lot of the times, winning against those questions and being able to, do something that maybe was unclear if it was possible before that.
Yeah, and your city was, all you guys, Chicago was one of the first to kind of embrace a broader, definition of beer. That having that cask festival there kind of invited people to go for it and do like exotic things. So I remember that. And then for different reasons, Chicago was also, as you guys know, when craft was cutting its teeth, it was known as like the Wild West in terms of unenforced shit and dirty stuff happening on the streets with breweries.
Yeah.
So you had this weird dichotomy of the messiness of the third world system, or third world, but 3 tiers.
Hey, second city, not third world. Come on, bud.
Yeah.
So your market was super unique as craft was taken off for a few reasons.
Were there ever ingredients that you just couldn't get them to agree to, and they're just like, hard no, you got to stop making that beer? Or were you able to successfully kind of be like, hey, no, we found ways that this is okay?
Yeah, that's a good question. Chime in for any that have just been told no. I'm trying to think. I think more internally, our own legal people were like, oh, don't make us spend capital on, like, crickets is a really good example. Like,
sure.
Other breweries have done it, and but our company was just, the legal appetite was not really there. So it's almost been more, I can't think of anything. Like, we put blue-green algae in beers, human saliva, garlic, and mace. And I'm trying to think if they ever said no. I don't know. Gabe, you got any?
No, I mean, we sort of, the TTB is a little squishy in terms of what, if you're crossing state lines and things like that. And so we, if we leaned out there, which we weren't often leaning in the same way that you guys were, Sam, but we definitely kept a lot of stuff in state and made that our sort of open invitation to do a bit more of what we wanted without checking with our friends at the
It was
TTB.
less risky state lines wise if your label was just a local label and not. Right?
Yeah, if you weren't crossing state lines,
Sure.
that's where they get particularly prickly. So, even today, we cross state lines, but pretty much a bit more on the straight and narrow.
A bit more.
Oh, yeah. Related question that I have, I think for probably all three of you, was there ever an ingredient that, like, your heart wanted to use really bad, but it wasn't necessarily the lawyers telling you no, it was just you couldn't make it work? It's just, I want to do it, but this beer is just, no matter what I do, it's just not good. I mean, Mike, you at Pipeworks must have won. I mean, you guys were coming up with crazy stuff.
We did all of them after they went out. There's now, I used to say, like, we're never going to run out of ideas. I think at some point you do run out of good ideas. I can't think of anything. There were some combinations we put together that weren't particularly well thought out. We were messing around. There's an area where we were messing around with rotary evaporating ingredients with some restaurants. And
Fancy restaurants.
Yeah, fancy restaurants.
How's that different than dehydration? So what's that like?
So the rotary evaporating, it's like a low pressure distillation. So you end up with like this liquid that you can dose into it, where it's like highly aromatic but doesn't necessarily have the same flavor compounds. So we did one with Next Restaurant that was rotary evaporated Fresno chilies. And then mango, and the idea was that it would smell like it's going to be super spicy, and then you would drink it, and it would basically be like mango juice. Mm-hmm. And that was really a cool. There are a lot of beers where there were cool concepts, and then you're like, I don't want to have much more of this, or this is not. Your brain's like, this is not supposed to be happening. There was one we did where we were kind of the first to use butterfly pea flowers in a beer, I think. So we were really intent on making this like bluish purple beer with rotary evaporated vanilla, and so it would smell like vanilla and then taste like lemonade, and it looked cool. Definitely looked cool.
Stop there.
We kind of biffed it though.
Yeah. Okay.
We worked with taro root one time, and it was a very interesting beer, but it definitely gave your face this tingling sensation that was maybe poison, but it was definitely a sensation that you ask questions: should this be
right? Interesting.
Did you brew it a second time, or some people do that tingly beer again?
It was one of those polarizing things that happen. Some people are like, "Wow, that was really unique and cool," and other people are like, "Guys, what? Why? What do you?"
Yeah.
A lot of
Please no.
So it was a one and done. Let's say that.
Yeah. How about you, Sam? Anything you can think of?
Yeah, I'd say. Well, while we were just talking, I remembered one that the TTB did get back to us after and say you can't do that again, and because I remember because it was back when there were still fax machines, like you'd be in your office and hear this noise in the corner, and then one week we got a email from the TTB or a fax saying, you can't brew with moon rocks. We don't care if eBay said they're certified that they were actually on the moon. Those have not been vetted to brew with moon rocks. And then, so that was, and that same week, the fax machine spit out like 2 days after the moon rock incident, this a reprimand from a record label saying, the band you have promoted playing in your pub last weekend is not the Gypsy Kings. They might have told you they were the Gypsy Kings and sounded like the Gypsy Kings, but stopped promoting that the Gypsy Kings played at your restaurant. So we got ripped off by a wonderful couple Spanish guitar players in 1 week and reprimanded for making beer with moon rocks. I thought it was a pretty good week at work. You know,
That's a good
I
one.
love that.
I think
it's a good week.
I love that people are just like, yeah, we're the Gypsy Kings. All right, cool.
With the fax machine era, you probably could get away with that a lot easier than like Googling on your phone and being like, no, you're not.
Yeah, right.
And imagine them all baked being like, how is it unethical? The name of our band is the
That's
Gypsy
the Big
Kings.
Lebowski band, right?
Yeah, we're the Gypsy Kings.
Yeah.
We're gypsies.
Yeah,
We're fine.
and we're the
Right.
kings of it. I think in doing a little bit of research for this, I saw an interview with where you talked about using St. John's wort in something.
Yeah, that's another reminder. They made us stop that too. Thank you, Mike. So
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Hickory Stout was made with coffee, organic Mexican coffee, licorice root, and St. John's wort, and not on the label, but in the old beer magazines like Ale Street News and the New England Beer magazine. Like we would have ads that said "Nature's first antidepressant depressant," and the feds were like, "You can't do that. You can't."
So
say
they
that.
stopped you using it, or they just stopped you? You can't say that.
I think it was actually both. I know we pulled St. John's wort out of the recipe, but
Yeah.
they definitely stopped us from saying that.
Yeah,
Antidepressant depressant.
bastards.
That's an amazing.
Yeah.
That's an amazing turn of phrase right there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the dang government.
That's pretty good.
Didn't sell
Kudos
too-
to that.
we
Take
just,
some balls.
We just brewed a beer with Goldfinger that just came out with bison grass, and it was Tom's idea. And he couldn't figure out how to put
Tom
it
of Goldfinger.
Yeah. He couldn't figure out how to put it in a lager, so he talked to my dumb ass and was like, put it in a Saison. And I'm like, sure. So I bought this bison grass, which is not very cheap but per pound. And then literally the day after I bought it, he texted me like, hey, I just found out like this isn't an approved ingredient. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like I didn't even think about it. And it has like the same compound that's in cinnamon. That coumarin, I think it's something like that, where it could be like acts as a blood thinner in high concentrations, but it has like 1/10 of the percent of what's actually in cinnamon. It's just not an approved ingredient because they're like, yeah, this is in there. So I was like, well, we're not sending this out of the state, and hopefully
Right.
the TTB doesn't listen to this podcast. But I was like, I'm fine with it if you're fine with it. He's like, okay, yeah, I'm fine with it.
What's the guy's name again? The TTB guy, the old school TTB?
Battle?
Battle.
I never
Battle
had
Martin.
Battle
yeah.
Martin. Okay.
They have a few people doing it now. But I did the first time I had one after it was finished bottle conditioning. It was another day like today when it was like negative 19 real feel. And I walked in from outside. I was testing the carb on it. I drank it, and I'm like, this is tasting great. Smells amazing. And then I got super flushed. And I was like, oh, no, like this really is like actually going to thin people's blood.
Really?
And I'm like, no, it's just negative 19 degrees
yeah,
outside.
no.
And you walked into a 70-degree tap room. So
That'll do it.
It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll do it.
But I was like panicking, like, oh
Yeah.
no, I'm going to kill people. But there's there's a small amount of it in there.
To if it's okay, to turn things a little bit, is something that Mike and I have talked about previous to this, but I think both of you, Gabe and Sam, I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on it. We were talking about how back in my day of craft beer exploration, there seemed to be so many, now this is all within the beer geek world, but there were household names within the beer geek world
Like
in craft
individuals.
beer. Yeah, individuals. So there was, Garrett Oliver and Sam and Vinny and people like that.
Rob Todd.
Rob Todd.
Slickest name in the game.
Exactly.
6 letters.
6 letters. That's all. That's all you need.
Very efficient.
And there were just these big personalities associated with craft beer. I mean, Jim Cook certainly. And how today there are 100x breweries out there than when it first started. But there don't seem to be as many, hardly any more household names. Not even that it's slowed down. It's like there's not really many more.
Yeah, if there are, they're the same people they were
And
at that era.
yeah, and just a few things like. Do either of you think there was a reason for this, or that there aren't now? Was it needed more then? Is it needed now? I don't know. Have you ever thought about that, Sam? I mean, you are kind of acknowledged as one of the faces of craft beer, especially when it was coming up, and there hasn't been like a second wave of like household craft beer names to kind of come along. I mean, Gabriel, no offense, but
I look forward to hearing everyone's view on this, because I think every moment that we started in the brewing industry might have been slightly different. But I would say that's a sign. It's a sign of victory that we're not reliant on like individual pioneers. It shows that we're like no longer in the pioneering stage of our art form or our craft or whatever you want to say, business industry, if you're less precious about it. But I think the personality of our community of indie craft has kind of eclipsed the need for the individual faces. I also think, I don't know about how old you guys have kids are, but I got a son who's 25, who's in the culinary world out in San Fran, and a daughter who's 23. He cares about craft, and he grew up choosing to work in our brewery and summer jobs. And our daughter's like, I want nothing to do with you guys. And she worked at our vintage clothes store and stuff. So he's still a beer drinker. But either way, their friends all grew up, stealing 60 Minute from our fridge and Anchor from our neighbor's fridge and Sam Adams or whatever, Daisy Cutter. And so it's like no longer needed to be like, holy shit, someone who opened a brewery, 10,000 people have opened a brewery. It's something that everyone in the neighborhood has done. So the younger drinkers now are not thinking about the names and faces of these pioneer people so much as they are hopefully thinking about how good the beers in our community are, and the brands, not the people, the brands and the beers in our community. I would say that my view of it. Looking forward to hearing your guys.
yeah. Gabriel?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like those early days, I mean, it was a terrible idea to open a brewery by all practical measure, right? Like, I mean, it was a turn back now, it required these personalities, people like Sam, to, just have the balls to step out and do it in the face of what was a bunch of really difficult commercial scenarios. And it was that recipe between those personalities, that drive, that ambition, and then the people that were interested in these things. It was that alchemy between those two things that created the magic that became, the craft beer thing that we all think of. It was that recipe that made it all possible. So I think because they made it possible, because of that initial energy, it made it more possible to be a reasonable commercial endeavor. People like with sound professional ideas could say, I think it might be a good responsible choice to open a brewery, and attracted something different with a different set of attributes. So I think it was all part of what was necessary to build an industry, and each of those stages were required. And today you start a brewery, it might not be that personality that's going to see you through those early steps, and it might be a specific professional acumen and resources that get you certain things. So it was just needed then, and and how great it was, right? Like it was,
Sure.
yeah, so wonderful experience and to witness, and yeah, I'm glad to have been a part of all of that.
Yeah, I mean,
Me too.
there was definitely an element of yeah, like I don't know. Well, thinking back, like romanticism of this new thing, these new people doing this kind of avant-garde stuff, and yeah, I suppose the story is a little different when it's like I've opened up the 200th brewery, ever in the United
Chicago,
States or something versus this 200th brewery in Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably harder to kind of have a personality be, I guess, unique. And also, this. I mean, do you think that it's probably harder to have such a big stage?
Yeah, I was thinking as the whole thing grows and there's so many more breweries and there's so many people doing different things within that, I think maybe the idea of this individual that people look to as like the head of something specific or the face of something specific gets more niche, where there's people who like obsess about certain people who make hazy IPAs or obsess about certain people who make lagers in a certain way, or geographically where there's people in different areas that are like that, but it's not the same as like having a reality TV show or something where it's like it has national appeal because the whole pie of craft beer is a different size. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of almost impossible to imagine a brewery in coastal Delaware today having somebody who becomes kind of known within a defined circle across the country. And yeah, I think I kind of agree with what you're saying, Sam. Is maybe the industry kind of needed these kind of large personalities, and maybe the fact that there were these people pioneering it just kind of there was a certain alchemy to it. Like they needed champions to kind of make people aware of it, and because, as you were saying, Gabe, this was maybe not the soundest financial thing you could do. You had these type of people doing it, just oozing kind of passion for it. Yeah, it's interesting. But part of me, whether it's possible or not, is a little wistful for having some of these, having some of these personalities, and I'm sure they're out there. It's probably just harder to that doesn't make sense. How could it be harder for these people to break through in the age of social media?
I wonder if there's something too, as you were saying, as it matures and it's more about the actual brand or the beer they're making, that it evolves, and that part of like the craft beer consumer's arc that we follow on the show a lot is like a lot of those early breweries that had those people eventually grew into a place where they may not have been able to sustain growth in any other way than a way that they were very against in their messaging originally, right? Like we were talking about how like Tony McGee on this very show at one point sat across from you and I and said, I'd talked to Budweiser and said I'd rather put my thumbs through my eyes than sell to you, and then sold to Heineken a couple days later.
Yeah, I think it was 2 weeks later, but yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's probably already in the works, but
Sure.
That's speculative.
Yes, it came out 2 weeks later, yes.
But I wonder if part of it is that people aren't paying attention to that anymore because there might have been a little bit of like this jaded feeling. Like how do people reconcile that? That's something we talk about on the show all the time, is like this industry that grew as this, messaging of fiercely independent and actually kind of
counterculture
in opposition to this thing has matured, and plenty of those places that were banging the drum for that don't live that lifestyle anymore. Their businesses don't operate that way anymore. And so like I don't know, sometimes I wonder like what are drinkers that felt that and connected with that authenticity to think as something like the brewery that says fizzy yellow water is the enemy, sells to a company that makes like foreign fizzy yellow water. I don't know. What do you? Anyone has any thoughts on that one? I guess that wasn't a great question.
It wasn't really a question. It was a statement. But
yeah, sorry.
I think if I could form it into a question,
sure.
Perhaps it would be, do you? Yeah, I mean, what is there to make of the fact that this thing started as kind of counterculture, and now some of the champions of this, and not necessarily personality wise, but like from a brewery standpoint, have now literally are some of the same companies that they were defining craft beer as not being. Right? Because it kind of craft beer was defined by what it wasn't as much as what it was. And I think some people who are really old, like myself, and have been drinking beer at the Stone Pony and drinking Dogfish at Indian Brown and stuff like that, are like, well, wait a second. What does this mean? And I do think there is kind of a, with the older heads, and maybe that doesn't matter because there's younger generations who don't care about this anymore. Yeah, but there is a little bit. What would you call that? Like cognitive dissonance? Is that a term?
Yeah.
Yeah. Either of you guys out there care to pick up that one? It's kind of a sticky question.
You really
go first, Gabe.
You really tightened that into a question there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a sticky one. I think, craft breweries are not all built the same way and are the same thing. And I think there's a lot of time is complicated, evolution is complicated, and I think businesses, which craft breweries are, require different things in different ways at different times. And I as a brewery owner, if I hear of some type of evolution like this, if I hear about it from another brewery, all I can think is I hope that change works well for them and their needs, because I don't understand what they are. And as a craft beer fan, I think about continuing to observe them as a business, and if the things that they're doing still resonate with me, well, that's me still believing in the mission, and if it doesn't, then I have a choice to make as a consumer, and I think that's all okay. That's all just fine. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I feel very similar to Gabe. I'll also, when you said earlier about, I think the last two topics are very related about, we don't have the faces of the first generation, and so well, why not? I mean, I think part of it is like the opportunity to amplify a brand voice in a universe with 600 breweries in America is very different than the opportunity to amplify a brand voice when there's 10,000 breweries, and it being about a person on a pedestal telling the story as the face of the brand, I feel like is less critical in that universe where so much craft beer is enjoyed right from the source at the local breweries. Like, my bigger concern, frankly, is for the beers that are 3-tier system driven, that are multi-state or national breweries. I feel like it's super Darwinistic and natural for the strong local players to stand out in their community and be voted on by their local community as the breweries that they want to line up at the tasting room. But there's so many factors that go into 3-tier distribution, and not the least of which at this moment is, the headwinds to alcohol in general, not just craft beer. And, I say it's the 3 big W wins of wellness, weed, and weight loss drugs. And for the first time ever, these 21 to 31-year-olds are just, I sound like an old guy on the Muppets or the Simpsons, but they're just drinking less alcohol. It's like, how are we going to engage with that with our community? We can make awesome non-alc or low ABV and low calorie beers that are part of that world, but it's an interesting moment with the drinking demographic that's very different from the universe when we had 600 breweries, not 10,000. And lastly, Mike, to your points, I wonder, you heard both you guys when Tony McGee said that on your show that night, like what percentage of drinkers are still drinking his beer or craft beer or whatever. Like, it was a very different era. And honestly, as a past chairman of the board of Brewers Association, proud current member, that we still put the logo on all of our cans, I wish more young consumers would care about who makes what they're drinks. But I feel like the bigger fight we have to fight right now is just to get them enjoying alcohol responsibly as part of their daily journey, and seeking out local full flavored options when they make those decisions. I think right now that's the bigger challenge we're all facing.
I have a question that, wasn't on the outline, so if you guys want to skip over this, but what both of you were saying and what Gabriel's saying specifically, I have a question about, do you guys have a explicitly articulated mission statement for your brands, and how has that informed your growth? And then conversely, how has growth evolved your mission? If it's also...
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Our loose mission has been for a long time now to be Chicago's leading brewery, and which is really less about scale or some sort of commercial dominance, and really just about a way of being and trying to, be a brewery of integrity and to be a good employer and to lead with quality and try to be the best version of this that we can imagine. That's our mission. Was there a second part to the question? Just
how has that informed how you grew, and then how has growth informed the evolution of that mission?
Yeah. Well, I think we were sort of low and slow for a long time. We could have definitely pulled some levers that would have been clearly directed at growth, like above all, that we didn't pull. And I think we were pretty committed to like this organic way of being, and then really everything changed, and now we're pretty aggressive in trying to really get every bit of distribution relevance that we can, and we don't do that by compromising all the things that I just mentioned about trying to be a leading brewery. We don't do that. However, we are being competitive in the marketplace, and I think that also ties back to some of the things that we were talking about, remaining independent or whatever. I think people have maybe a very generic idea of what it means to either be independent or not, and those things inherently are two different things. But we are competitive in the marketplace. We rely a lot on chain business, and we are, we'll do things to try to be relevant in those different tiers. But it doesn't mean that your small, tiny, independent brewery that is also trying to compete in the landscape isn't doing things that might be on par with some multinational whatever. People are all doing what they need to do right now, which isn't about something underhanded, but we're all competing, hopefully tastefully and healthily, for the things that we need to exist, because there's nothing unsexy like layoffs. That's I think is a truth out there.
How about you, Sam?
Yeah, I'll jump in there and yes, we've been lucky that we've kind of had the same mission for the brand since we opened, and it's painted on every one of our buildings, and it warmed my heart, Mike, at the beginning when you said, so off-centered goodness for off-centered people has actually been our rallying cry since 2002, because before that, it was off-centered ales for off-centered people. It comes from this Emerson quote about being on an exploration of goodness. So we evolved it because from the get-go, we were a brewery and a restaurant, not just beer, and using culinary ingredients and beer ingredients in both the kitchen and the brewery in '95. But we just said off-centered ales for off-centered people because it looked cool on a six-pack or a 22-ounce bottle back when that was a thing. But then once we were thought about it, we were making beer wine hybrids and beer mead hybrids like Midas Touch in the late 90s. We're let's stop having this discussion about ales. Let's just evolve it to off-centered goodness. And it's a reference to the exploration of goodness that's on our buildings in the Emerson quote. And so we haven't had to change that since we opened. And then similarly, when we were, we decided, my wife and I, to do the merger with Boston Beer, back to, Gabe's point on independence. I was on the board of the Brewers Association myself, Ken Grossman, Kim Jordan, Jim Cook, and others, when we came up with that definition to make that community that represented at that time maybe 10% of sales in America of beer, distinct from the 90% controlled by international companies. We came up with that definition. Jim Cook and I became good friends. And, when Gabe said layoffs weren't sexy, as craft beer slowed down, we, as a family company, were faced with, we're still selling really well in our backyard, but it's harder to keep beers at, the Hop Leaf down the road from you guys, or wherever, Austin or Seattle, when there's people coming into their bars every day and being like, hey, why do you have that Dogfish beer on tap? I'm brewing beer across the street from you. And we didn't have a big sales force. So we're like, all right, well, we can either retract our geography or combine with another independent American craft brewery that has some scale and has a national sales force. So that was really kind of what drove our merger. But back to the question on mission and values, when Jim Cook and I, we've been friends for 20 years, when we kind of opened up our hoods of our vehicles and showing off our engines, like we had, Dogfish had rules of thumb, which was our version of values. Our number one rule of thumb was, we are, both words in all caps, off-centered goodness for off-centered people. And when Jim, shared the values of BBC, number one was, we are, all caps, the Boston Beer Company. And the concept was the same, that people come first, trends and fads change. But if you can entice a bunch of amazing coworkers, to Gabe's point of letting great people go suck. So instead, if you can attract a bunch of great coworkers to a concept instead of a product that they believe in, they'll be ready, to face whatever the new trend or fad is. So that was a moment that made Mariah and I want to take that leap of faith, was that similarity kind of in values.
How about you, Mike? What do you have a mission statement?
I mean, we have like a quippy one that's just like simple complexities in liquid form. And then there's an actual like full-on written out 3-part mission that involves financial stability, growth of our employees and our community, and quality of our product.
Got it. It's funny.
That one, simple
complexities in liquid form.
I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, and ours at the Beer Temple. It's funny. Gabriel and I were having a scaled down version of this conversation last week, and I did not know that you were going to be asking this question. But it is funny.
I didn't know
talking
either,
about mission statements.
I talk about my dad all the time.
Oh,
so
got it.
Something that once I heard you talking about the if that works for your mission, I'm like, well, Doug's going to ask me why I didn't ask.
Ours is adding joy to people's lives.
Yeah,
is our goal.
I think we talked about it with my dad.
Yeah,
you and I talked about it.
Just that's when someone comes in, or we want them to leave, having a little bit of joy being added to their life. So what's bad about that?
What could be more joyous?
Yeah, exactly.
All missions should be dad approved. I'm pretty sure. If your dad doesn't like it, it's got to go.
That's my dad. He'll talk to you about the mission, vision, and values until you can't talk anymore. It's kind of his thing.
I like the simplicity of yours, Chris, as well, the memorability of it, because also it's like a different version of the golden rule, and the good energy that comes thinking about bringing joy to other people's lives first is obviously what brings joy back to you. So that's something that's different words, but in every modern or every religion has some version of that, the karma in that statement.
This is a temple, after all.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just power through. I was going to say fill my glass, but
we've got this delicious vodka crush.
It's true. It's true. We do. I think. Well, here's kind of one of just a simple one.
Sorry.
There's opening up the can and getting that kind of crack into into and then there's that sound, which it sounds a little bit different. It sounds kind of like Frank Drebin when he forgot to turn off the hot mic in Naked Gun. But where was I? One for all three of you. It's kind of just a simple question. What did you all think was going to be the biggest beer when you first started? It'll be interesting to see because you guys are all at different points on the curve in the journey of your breweries. How about you, Sam? Let's start from the oldest. Like when you first started, did you have an idea of like this is going to be our flagship? This is going to be the beer that people are going to love and is going to kind of drive growth and that we're going to be known for. I mean, was it 60 Minute or was it something that has kind of been lost to time? The cricket beer.
Yeah, no, 60 Minute didn't come out till like we opened in 95 and 90 Minute came out in 99 and Midas Touch as well. But in the earlier days, it was our four original beers were Chicory Stout, Shelter Pale Ale, Raison d'Etre, and Immortale, which was made with maple syrup and vanilla beans and peat smoked barley. Is 11 ABV. And I think probably
those are your first four beers? Wait, what? Wait, hold on. Go through think about this nowadays. Your first four beers were what again? It was a Chicory Stout. 5
ABV. That was our version of Bud Light, but it was really more like a Sierra Pale. And then Raison d'Etre had beet sugars and raisins in it. And
like a Belgian kind of style, right?
Yeah, that was Draconic Yeast, Belgian Red in 95, and then Chicory Stout. And then Immortale, maple syrup, vanilla bean, peat smoked barley, and oak chips. It was aged on oak chips even back then before we had wood tanks. So it was my hope that Raison d'Etre, Chicory Stout, and Raison and Immort would outsell Shelter Pale Ale. The Pale Ale was my way to be like, well, when 5 people came in and one was like, I want a Bud Light, I was like, that's for you. We want to do these culinary beers. And away we went. So it wasn't until 99 that we started really focusing on IPAs in addition to those more culinary focused beers.
Wow.
Of those core four that you started with, do you think one was going to be the real winner? Like, were you like, this one, everyone's going to love the...
I guess, Mike, that's a good one. I think Raison d'Etre, because it was an easy to understand proposition, the concept, Raison d'Etre, the reason to be, made with raisins, and we designed it to go as a perfect partner with a steak because it had the red wine character from the grapes and stuff. So it was an easy proposition to get in the face of like the James Beard or culinary world and put beer kind of on that white tablecloth in the late 90s. And then it won Malt Advocate, was a big publication in the late 90s, Lou Bryson and people that wrote for that one. And it won after like Hair of the Dog. I wanted that. I remember when Hair of the Dog was on the cover of Malt Advocate magazine. I was like, holy shit, that'd be like being on the cover of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit model. And
when did 120 Minute come out, Sam?
Oh, okay, Gabe. So that would probably be like 02 or 03 because we used that yeast regimen for high ABV beers first with Worldwide Stout when I had to erase every vigor in 99. And we're like, well, fuck, if we can do it for a stout, let's apply that yeast and enzyme regimen to IPA. So I would guess 120 would be around 02.
Yeah, those beers were earth-shattering then.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were really seismic. That was, I did a lot of all those.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And your era was awesome I remember touring your brewery when you had that loft where you kept your grain. I remember how tight and every inch of that space fit. But yours, that moment was so much fun too, about like just the freshest, biggest, brightest aromatic IPAs, and having Daisy Cutter where it was first made was a very memorable moment for me.
Yeah, that beer, whatever is going to be the biggest for us, that was sort of decided for us very early on, and we were sort of riding on the back of that beer. So
to Mike's question, you didn't think it was going to be your biggest?
No, I mean, it was
Over Ale, the styleless wonder.
It came to be before I think we had any business, like predicting anything. It just happened, and we were right on the back of it then, still are today in a lot of ways, and we've sort of built a business around it. So, yeah, definitely a choice made for us. Wonderfully so. So grateful that all of you out there have made that selection.
And that was over ale,
Break
Gabe?
yours.
That's kind of stemmed from, that everything's kind of stemmed from over ale? Kind of, it's kind of
Yeah, of course.
branched
That's,
off. Yeah.
really the beer that built Chicago beer, I'm pretty sure. Right?
That's
Synonymous
that's
with
what I've
craft
heard.
beer.
Yeah.
That's how everybody thinks of it, I think.
Yeah.
Make your IPAs brown again.
Yeah, exactly.
What about yours, Mike?
I mean, we're still so small and relatively young that the first beer we ever brewed, Will Be, which is the flagship saison we make.
Also, so good. I just had it the other day at your spot.
Thank you. Yeah.
Delicious beer.
I'll slip you your $20 later when I get my credit cards back. But yeah, so that's still like the one that we sell the most of. It outpaces everything else in the tap room by like almost like everything else combined, and then Will Be on draft for people. So
Sure. And that was your first beer.
that was the first thing we ever made. It was the whole reason for making the brewery. Is like I want
Your
to
raison d'etre.
my raison d'etre was to make Will Be, because I'm like, no one's making a beer like this that I really want to drink. Mm-hmm. So it was a foolish decision.
What's the descriptors in the beer that you were going after that no one was making?
It was really like a very ester-driven saison that was relatively lower in ABV, and then naturally carbonated. So we open top ferment it at really high temperatures, and then build the beer around how we can better produce certain esters at higher quantities from a specific yeast. So
It's like sub 5 ABV, or what is it?
it's 5.3.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we do have another beer that's 3.2 that right now is not selling for shit. But when the temperature is lower
that
than
bourgeois?
yeah,
Okay.
when the temperature is lower than the ABV of that beer, it's a tough sell.
Yeah, that's true.
But in the summer, it crushes.
But Will Be is kind of like it's almost like a continental style saison, but that you can get really fresh.
Really fresh, and then most of it, except for some of the hops, are like local malts.
Okay.
So it's evolved a little bit over time to be almost entirely a local beer.
Chris, but not to put you on the spot, but what's a tap that you thought you'd put on for 1 or 2 kegs and it's still on X amount years later?
Great question.
Yeah, there's that's an easy one. When we did our friends and family, we had maybe like 5 of our 20-something drafts filled out, and one of them was Jungle Boogie from Mars, which is a pale wheat ale with rooibos tea and mosaic hops, and it became our only steady beer up until. I mean, I think it has only been off for like a week or two since then, and just because people liked it and it was relatively low ABV and really not like anything else,
Yeah,
and
it's a unique
local,
beer.
and did not see that one coming. And there were others that were like, oh, I'm sure, and I won't get into those because I don't want to call anybody out, but that I was like, oh, I love this beer. I can't wait to share it. Will Be first batch.
No one wanted it.
No, we do have that on draft
Yeah,
right
you do.
now.
Yeah, you do
actually.
have it on draft.
And there were, you just have to kind of see what people want, and you can kind of present them and tell them that the things that you like and that you hope that they like, and sometimes they hit and sometimes they don't. And you just got to kind of roll with that. And the good thing about being a publican is I have so much to so many beers that I want to champion that it's easy to just kind of like, well, try this one. There's too many beers, really, especially on a tap. I mean, in the bottle shop, it's much easier. We have hundreds of SKUs, but on the draft line, there's too many options to choose. But right now, it's the Ondex Vol beer, very good beer.
It's gonna be on forever.
Yeah, hey, and Sierra Nevada is super fresh right now. It tastes
That's
great. I would say slow melt, but we already kicked it. Sorry, Gabe. So you'll have to buy that. You'll have to buy that to go.
More at the distributor waiting for you.
Yes, I know. We're getting more in tomorrow, but people drank it too darn fast.
Hey Sam, I got a question for you, if that's all right.
Of course.
You've been in it for a long time. You spent a career in it. You've witnessed really a full cycle, right? I mean, from early, very the jelly stage of all this to now being on on the backside of a long period of time. We went through extreme beer fest. Is this even still happen anymore? Does it happen?
No, I remember you came in the early years.
Yeah, I remember you and I being in Boston and the entire city shut down. White out, and we all met at a bar because the fest was canceled. We all met at a bar. My buddy skied over there through the streets of Boston. But, at that point, beer got wild. It certainly retracted now to people just, I think, Mike's will be that beer is balanced and delightfully subtle. And will we get back to a place where people will they'll track down these intense beers and look to push themselves and what they enjoy into odd places again, or are we staying here?
Yeah, I'm sure we all could share perspective on this, all four of us. But yeah, I would say the only benefit to that 21 to 31-year-old demo that's A, drinking less, but B, when they came into alcohol, now percentage odds are they didn't come into alcohol through their own choices and their own dollars going towards craft. Maybe they stole some from their parents, but once they had to buy their own stuff, they were mostly coming in through like seltzers, if it wasn't spirits or wine, but it was mostly cocktails, seltzers, canned cocktails, and all of those pretty much have some culinary ingredients, whether they're real or not, whether they're want for real or whatever format. So they are comfortable with unexpected combinations, I think, of natural ingredients. And I think that's an opportunity for craft brewers to, every year it's like, well, what's after IPA? And then it's like, oh, well, brewers drink Pilsners while they're making IPAs. But we're really still talking about the same four ingredients recombined when we're talking about the Pilsners and IPAs that a lot of our community get excited about. So I'm very much obviously biased in the camp of how can we entice these younger drinkers with unexpected ingredients. Like I am sorry I didn't send it to you, Gabe, but the rest of us, I sent the bottles of the cans of our new beer that we're doing with the Dogfish head, and we're leaning right into the, steely icon of, steal your face. But 10 years ago, I would have wrote brewed with 12% of the fermentables from Kernza. We brewed it with oat and honey.
Oh, it's a Kernza beer. I didn't know that.
We would have, and it's got Kernza in it. It's got granola in it, but it just says juicy pale ale with a big steely and a Dogfish. Because honestly, we want it to be like a Trojan horse for that 21 to 31-year-old drinker that's like, I don't want to be scared by all this weird craft beer language. So we wanted to make it like really approachable, but still have that culinary DNA, So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's something that we're really excited about in this moment.
I think so. You think there's going to be another group of, young ladies or men that are going to show up and revolt against the things that you got going and when we got going and be the breath of different air that are going to rise up, and present something new?
I do. I mean, we did a beer with Talea, a woman-owned brewery, and two women in New York that I became friends with, and they've got a really cool concept where they're trying to bring more women into craft beer and be like, all right, it's not all bitter. We're doing these fruited sour flights, and here's the wine equivalents for each of our beers. Have you guys hung with those ladies? Do you know them? Talea?
I haven't met them.
No, I don't. I do not.
Yeah. So they're doing great things in New York. So I do think there's got to be another moment that captivates and brings that younger drinker in. But I don't think it'll be as critical on who the founder of those companies are for the reasons we talked about earlier. It's like, I don't give a shit that you opened a brewery. Tell me about what's special about what you made in your brewery. So I think that's what the opportunities that we have to bring these younger drinkers back into the fold of a greater definition of craft beer than just four ingredients, which you can make beautiful beers, as we all know, with 4 ingredients. But that's my.
Do you think the story behind the brand or the story of the brand is going to be important, or do you think it's going to be more about just the flavors that you're hitting people with, or do you not have a real opinion on it?
I'd love to hear from all of us on that one too, because I think it's got to be equal. Like the distinction and compelling characteristics of the story have to match the same level of distinction and quality of the beer, of the drinks, whatever they are. And I think those, if you got both, if you're firing on both those cylinders, you're way better than we all know breweries that are firing on one or the other. They're awesome storytellers, but their recipes are meh or unpredictable or inconsistent. And then there's the ones just bulletproof on nailing good beer, but don't give a shit or aren't great articulators of what makes them exciting.
Yeah.
What do you?
I mean, I certainly, I don't know, but I hope that you're right. I hope that who is making it matters, and that it doesn't just need to be, something that is, someone types into ChatGPT, create my brand identity for me. What is a compelling background story? And then it gets kind of regurgitated. That's kind of the nightmare that I have. But then again, I'm a pessimist as as an Eagles fan. But hey, the good things happen to us too. Yeah,
go Birds. Right? I think I'm interested to see as they come of like more of drinking and I guess more spending age, what this next generation thinks of, like what Gen X and millennials clearly cared about in authenticity and of like I care very deeply about where my things come from and where I'm trying to spend money in this system. So it will be interesting to see when they have more money to spend, if that's something that carries through to generations or if it's, not as big of a value, and see how that affects breweries like mine or ours that try to tell stories of some sort of authenticity or some sort of locality or some sort of connection beyond just making the best flavor tasting things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But what do you think, Gabe? I mean, do you think that there's going to be a next, I don't know if we're at third wave or fourth wave or whatever, but do you think there's another wave coming that's just going to be something that, no, I'm guessing we're not going to see, but that will come?
Well, I sure as hell hope we do.
Yeah, me too.
I think, I have to imagine, I think things are spinning pretty quickly right now, and things are changing rapidly. And I don't know, I guess candidly, I think all of us are pretty embedded inside of the dynamics that exist right now. And sometimes, and Sam, you saw all this firsthand, and Ken Grossman and the other forefathers. And sometimes it takes people that don't have the embedded knowledge or the embedded baggage in some ways to decide what they see. And, I think that those are exciting moments. And I have to believe that it will come. Me putting a shape to it now would be difficult. But I think all those things are very possible. And I'm excited to see somebody pop out with something super cool. And I bet you they're charismatic as shit.
I hope so.
Their face has to be the representation of their brand or their logo. They're charismatic in what they made stand out. And I read, Gabe, an interview you did where someone asked you, what's your favorite beer bar to hang out at? And you said it's actually our tasting room, because if I can go there with our brewers and try something that's brand new, made small batch, what could be cooler than that? And that's still my favorite moments, is going into our tasting room where the eyes are not on what has to be the next 60 minute. It's a bunch of brewers and packaging people and accountants and blah, 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 who are together, forklift drivers after their shift. And they're being like, let's drink the shit out. This is really good. Have you tried this? And stuff that was made in 5 and 7 barrel batches. And those are still, those are the moments I get up super excited about, is to have those experimental beers. Maybe the next one will be the next 60 minute, maybe it won't, but they all have a place in our brand's journey for sure.
Yeah, I think all the same things are still super exciting today. It's harder for them to sort of just emanate out effectively into the world in the same way. And when you guys were getting going, it was such an intimate thing. And the people if you were in Delaware, the folks in whatever Idaho that were tracking down craft beer, like they'd find you because of just there wasn't a ton to find, and your signal would get there, and that's a pretty special thing. But I think some of those same dynamics that existed then that effectively got you to them, they're still very present today. You got to know where to look and know where they're vibrant.
Yeah.
But man, they're still very much alive and well.
I don't think you don't have to be as geographic driven to find your audience, because I think if you can do something really special local, you can find enough people that will care enough to find you. Whereas in our era, when you were selling pallets a month in a state, not containers a month, you kind of had to go pretty far to find those kinds of ambitious drinkers.
Yep. Well, yeah, and if people, you listeners out there, like, go to these places and try to tap into those folks that are really at the source of what these beers are. People like Sam and Mike. I was on the phone or on a video call with Matt Brenelson this week, and just listening to what's that?
Name dropping.
Friend of the show.
That's fine.
You heard it here first. But, just listening to him talk about beers, I get excited. Just, he's just transmitting energy about this stuff, and no different from 2006 for me to today. So those things they're still vibrant. You got to look a little harder maybe, or know where to look, whatever. But man, it's still good.
Yeah.
Amen.
I find it so cool having a tap room and seeing what surprises me and what people are going after. And I was just talking with our bar buyer, and I was like, am I crazy or is this happening? He's like, oh no, it's happening. And it's younger people going towards higher alcohol beers, believe it or not, but they often are like Belgian, like not like triple IPAs, not huge stouts, but like these 9, 10, 11% Belgians, like Degar triple and stuff like that. And we're trying to figure out why, and it's maybe because some of these younger kids are like drinking some of the. This is us just super hot taking, like some of those beers brands that are focused on younger drinkers, like Voodoo Ranger and stuff like that, are pretty high alcohol. So maybe
and pretty sweet, like a double or a triple.
Yeah. And if somebody wants to be, like when I was in college, I would be, I'm not drinking that Bud Light Ice or Bud Ice. I'm going to drink Red Dog because I have a sophisticated palate, or something like that. Yeah. But maybe it's like, and I'm not trying to equate, Degar triple to that, but maybe they're wanting that kind of, a stronger beer, but they want something that's, just made with a little bit more intent and history.
We've seen an interesting trend in the tap room, which is very much as a data point of one, but like,
data point
between
of one.
Like we open if it's a Saturday and we open at noon, between noon and 10, there isn't anyone in there that's under 32, and then between 10 and midnight, there's maybe some of those people hang out, but most of the people are like between 24 and 28, and they show up in groups and they're coming. And I think part of it is like we've gotten a lot of press about being a new brewery that doesn't make the things that other breweries make. So I wonder if there's a lot of younger people who maybe a section of them that decided that they didn't like IPAs because they didn't have the right ones or whatever, and then they're like, well, let's try this thing, let's try this Belgian thing, or let's try this like this Saison Brewery. Like we don't even know
Yeah.
what that is, but
Yeah.
they show up in
Are you
like groups.
doing- I got a question, Mike.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything special, like with the music or the programming after 9? Let's say that's also bringing them in, or is
No.
it all about them choosing?
Yeah, it's all about them choosing, but they always show up later, and they always show up in groups, like larger groups. Like
Not
it's,
even the BPMs of the playlist is changing.
no, honestly, I'm typically heading home and in bed, but no, we're still playing the sad millennial music at the tap room music. But no, we're not doing anything to program for them. And every once in a while, a group of them comes in and they're like, absolutely not, and they walk right back out because they're dressed up to go to a club, and they don't realize that we're in something, like they think we're like one of the hottest new bars or whatever.
Yeah.
And they come in, they're like, nope, this is not the scene. So not all of them are coming to do that, but yeah, it's interesting to see like the demographic get younger when the later we go.
Sure.
And we'll see how long. We'll see if it lasts. We're still relatively new in the tap room, so we'll see if that's a thing that carries through. But
I'm seeing, some of the people like our age kind of shying away from the higher alcohol stuff. But I was just surprised to see, although I guess, younger, when I was younger, was more willing to drink more higher alcohol stuff too, because I'd feel fine the next day.
yeah, they're
or
like 5
whatever.
years. I didn't drink anything below 8%.
Yeah, but those strong Belgians, I don't know if it's just like a data point of one, but I would certainly like to see that.
Maybe they're going through
It'd
that.
be cool to come back.
That cycle we used to talk about. They were like, no one goes on the let's try all the styles of beer that we know of. Everyone stopped at IPA for a while. Maybe they're pushing through. And
Right. Maybe I need to have the little passport book come out again.
Yeah. Have you guys heard about
Mug clubs?
Yeah.
No.
What about Beer Advocate? Let me tell you about Beer Advocate.
Yeah.
Back
Well,
in my day,
I
we
think
didn't
we
even have
have
an
to
app.
ask something of Sam. This is just a straight up question that you and I are definitely interested to hear about. So what happened? Where are the Palo Santo fooders? Like, are they still like in operation? Have they been decommissioned, or where are they?
To paraphrase Joni Mitchell, they paved paradise and put up a parking lot.
Okay.
When basically, as you guys know, it became challenging to do these very expensive beers that were glass format, over 8 ABV to sell them in that environment of 4-pack can IPAs and double IPAs became challenging. So we retracted it back, to our own properties for those kinds of massive bold beers. We still do 120-minute worldwide nationally, but we dose it in as a limited time thing. It's not like always out there. So the yada yada yadas, we repurposed some of that space for growing yeast, and then we chopped up the tanks.
You chopped them up. Okay.
From Fargo. It was like a body bag from Fargo of our Apollo tanks, so that we still have all the chips, which have more surface area, so we can still make it and make beers with Apollo and actually make spirits. Like we made some beautiful whiskeys in our distillery aged on Apollo, so it's still doing its magic, but it's shape shifted to tiny chunks versus 300-barrel tanks.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, something had to have happened.
Yeah, right.
To them, right. We're like, there's got to be a story.
They got to be around in some form.
Right.
They live on.
Okay, cool.
Because that was another one. Now you're reminding me talking to the TTB about Palo Santo, and then 5 years after our legal fight, there was Palo Santo incense everywhere in America. I was like, motherfuckers, believe in Palo Santo.
Right. Yeah.
That was your doing, I would imagine. That's the tip of the spear for the rest of the Palo Santo industry.
Right. Yeah, I still remember. I mean, talk about stories. I mean, you think of stories selling wine, but they definitely can sell beer as well, because I remember having it and buying a 4-pack or I don't know what the format was originally. I remember it being a 4-pack.
Yeah, 4-pack of 12 ounce, right?
Yeah, and telling my friend the story that I was probably getting half right, half wrong about, he went into the jungle and they were searching for this Palo Santo tree, and the guy shot it and the bullet bounced off it, and that's how he knew it was the tree. I don't know if that was right or wrong. It's it's one of the hardest woods, so that means the beer's got to be good.
Wow, you're taking me back. And when we first released, I remember fucking Binny's calling me in Chicagoland and being like, your glue of your DVDs that you've affixed to your 4-packs that tell the story of Palo Santo are coming off, and they're getting into like our fans in our cold box. Imagine like us gluing DVDs.
Yeah, right.
I never knew you did that. That's a great idea.
We glued DVDs. It's like 10 years before a QR code.
Right.
game.
Right.
We were gluing
That's
DVDs.
wonderful.
Probably put it into
Wow.
my CD-ROM and watched it.
What
you
sort
know?
of packaging line did you have where you could glue DVDs onto the 4-packs?
It was
This
hand
kind.
done. Like, imagine coming home to your lady friend and be like, "Hey, let's split some drinks tonight. It's Friday night, and I'm gonna pop in this DVD."
Yeah. You're getting laid tonight.
I mean, I did date a girl.
Barry White. That was Barry White music for a very small, thin niche of ladies.
Yes,
I
exactly.
mean, I did date a girl for whom the Dogfish reality TV show was must-watch television.
Oh.
She didn't like beer that much, so I think she was just looking at
Sam.
No,
that's-
she loved beer. As also didn't hurt.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
It warms my heart. Mariah never said those things about Michael Jackson, even though she wrote pickup trucks with her.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
Well,
you guys, I got a question for you guys in Chicagoland,
Yes.
which is, I mentioned that cask beer festival, and when we talk about moments to bring younger drinkers back in, is there anything there, any energy to bring something that like rustic back as this regional like destination event?
Well, we still have Fobab,
Yeah.
the Festival of Barrel Aged Beers,
Yeah.
and I mean that's a pretty gnarly episode every single year, and something that is very that is Chicago. You can't. Well, there are other probably versions, and obviously barrel aged beer everywhere at this point, but that is we are ground zero for that one, and I don't know, like is that a beacon for newcomers, or holding the torch for those that have been around? Probably more the latter.
yeah,
I'm
it's
not
a
sure.
curiosity. I mean, we have a hand pull. We're one of the few, and it's one of those things that it's kind of like pizza or something. You see someone else getting pizza, and you're like,
Fajitas.
Yeah, or fajitas. Yeah, well, I'll get one of them. Yeah, as soon as somebody sees, somebody, using the hand pull and the beer engine and pulling a pint, they tend to go faster, and especially then if the beer is good, because it is something, people are looking for still experiential things, and that isn't something you can get at home or recreate. Like even a cocktail, you can recreate at home. You can't do real ale at home.
Maybe Steve Hamburg can.
Maybe Steve Hamburg can.
Definitely, Steve.
Yeah, he can. Probably better than I ever will. But yeah, we've started leaning into casks for our events. And it again, we are the one molecule on the tip here of the spear. But for us, it draws. So we're kind of leaning in, and we're almost we decided just like last week, like maybe we should just lean in until it breaks and see like how far are people willing to go, just like out of curiosity. So like we might put on, and we're working with Chicago Beer Society and Steve Hamburg and some of the people who did, Day of the Living Ales and Real Ale Fest and stuff like that, to see if we can do like a miniature version to see if people are interested in these like beer experiences.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I'm with you, Sam. I don't know, but I hope so, because it is cool and rustic, and people still, they don't really, I mean, they kind of get it, but they don't really care either. They're like, oh, okay, well, this is cool. And then some of them are like, oh, it's flat. And other people are like, oh, cool, I like it.
Right. I think the next generation of like events that might bring younger people in is going to be at least some part reviving things like that, and then some part things that we haven't even thought of yet, right? Like different engagement ways to engage people, and then some things where it's like, this is the very traditional.
Yes.
So the things that were kind of not completely lost, but very drowned out by the 4-pack of labeled hazy IPAs proliferation.
Yeah.
But we'll see what the percentage of each is
Yeah.
going forward.
You guys should, I like where you guys are going with that. maybe the new version of that famous Cask Beer Fest in Chicago could be. And Gabe, you had you called it a pretty gnarly episode. That's a great guide. What if it was like cask beer and canned cocktails as a festival concept? That's all you get. There's no IPAs. There's awesome cask beers and there's canned cocktails. And then when worlds collide, that could be a lot of fun. I'll send Firkins and cocktails and be a sponsor if you guys make that happen.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have a friend who's been trying to pitch people on a Glizzies and Fizzies festival, which is hot dogs and various canned cocktails and seltzers.
Okay.
So maybe Glizzies and Fizzies will be a sister festival.
I love
to
the juxtaposition of canned cocktails and
cask
ale.
ale.
Cask ale.
It's like fuck your parents and what they were drinking. This is about what our grandparents were drinking and what we're drinking.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Hey.
Not your father's root beer will come back, but not your grandfather's root beer because it's so old at this point.
Right. Absolutely. Do we have time to get to the letter? I feel I'd like to get to the letter if possible. Okay, cool. So we take letters.
Electronic.
Last time, we had handwritten letters. I had a hand-delivered letter last week. I think the first ever, perhaps, hand-delivered letter.
We've gotten messages in bottles.
Yes, we've gotten a message in a bottle with actual sand in it. We've had typewriters. We had a ransom note with people gluing things from magazines.
Yeah, we love our
This
listeners.
was an old-fashioned electronic letter, as I like to call it, that was sent to our email address. And it's from Sam in Erie, Pennsylvania. And he writes, Insiders, over the past few years, I've noticed the length of time imperial stouts and barley wines have spent in barrels has continued to go up. When I first started enjoying barrel-aged beers 10-plus years ago, most were aged around 12 months. Now I'm seeing upwards of 3 and 4 years and counting. This trend first appeared on my radar with a brewery local to me, but now I'm noticing it more and more. I imagine this trend started with a backlog created during the COVID shutdown and kind of waned demand for these types of beers. Are beers aged for 4 years in a barrel markedly better than less oxidized versions of these beers that are aged for 2? In my experience, no. Cheers, Sam in Erie, PA. So I think the question is, why are beers that are aged for so long seeming to increase? I think Sam answered his own question in my mind, but I wanted to, as kind of the barrel guy at Pipeworks and as people with barrel programs, both Gabe and Sam, I'm just curious.
I would guess that what he said is partially correct. I'm sure there's many threads to it. What he said is partially correct with COVID. I think there was also probably something of an maybe overestimation in the trajectory of popularity of these things, so that things that people thought would be coming out of barrels in 1 to 3 years are now coming out in 1 to 2 years, are coming out in 3 to 4 years.
Barrel-aged beers, the new IPA, man.
Always have been. So that might be part of it. And then there might just be that there are some programs where they can do that now. You know, like the brewery as a whole has grown to a point where this like smaller faction of it that's very expensive and very labor intensive and very not capital intensive but time intensive can be extended out that long. So there's probably several different reasons why you're seeing that. Are they better or not? You kind of have to decide that for yourself.
Right.
I would imagine if you trust someone's barrel program, you would trust that they intended, like the thing that they pulled out of 4-year-old barrels is changed in a way significant enough for it to need to be packaged as a thing that's 4 years old rather than 2 years old. But that's up to you. What do you guys think?
Okay, what do you got?
That sounds like a long time in wood for me, but can't say until pulled a sample on that one. So that's either I don't know, maybe that long we'd be blending it into something else, but I don't know. We got to taste it. But Sam from Erie, if you like what you're tasting, then good on you.
You win. Yeah, I would say trust the brewers' palates and their wine thief on the right moment of bringing their barrels to package. And in our experience, there was some of that, not just the COVID moment, but just like slowdown in barrel beer interest that held some barrels back for us and made us rethink how we combine them. And it was very different on what we do on the barrel-aged beer side than what we do like on the whiskey and distillery side, where we're targeting like 3, 5, 7 years for the whiskey ones, whereas the beers are more the brewers with the wine thieves and their palates making the decision on the right moment to blend, but very rarely is it more than 2 years, I would say, on the beer side, whereas on the whiskey side, it could be 3, 5, 7 years.
Yeah, I think it's probably just, excess capacity. But if I had to make a guess, as the most uninformed member, I will answer the question as, why not? Because why not? But thanks, Sam, from Erie, for the letter. And for those of you who want to ask questions, who knows? Maybe you'll get Sam Calagione and Gabe from Half Acre to weigh in on it. So you can shoot us an electronic letter or a handwritten letter, or you can type it up and print it out. We accept printed letters as well. And we'll have our information in the show notes where you can send us letters, but always appreciate that. Mike, are there any final questions that you would like to ask, or that anyone, I should say? Are there any final questions that we have out there before we get along?
Which member of the state is the funniest when you're just hanging out with them?
My best pals from that show are Ken Marino and Joe Latruglio, the short cop on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And I'm not going to choose one of my two children.
That was the gotcha question.
Who I love equally, but sometimes I want to hang out with one more than the other. My children and those guys, but they're still dear friends. And I'm much like us as brewers, to come across paths after years. And Gabe and I had known each other for almost 2 decades, I think. And so I'm just super proud that they've been able to go their creative journey and make a career out of what they love to do, and that they're both still able to do that. But that was a fun era. My question to you, and I asked this, our hotel's 3 blocks down from where I'm sitting here in the harbor in Lewis. Speed round. If each of you had to be stuck on an island for a full year, and it has coconuts and fish, if you're a good fisherman, it's tropical, it's always good weather. You live in a nice thatched hut with a really good sound system, but you have to live off of, other than coconut and fish, 1 condiment, 1 alcoholic drink that your company doesn't make, and the discography of 1 recording artist on your sweet stereo, and everyone they ever recorded with, not that they shared a stage with during a festival. Lightning round, 3 answers.
Wait, hold on. What was the last one?
Condiment. Alcoholic beverage you don't make.
And a recording artist. Oh, my goodness.
This all the time. I'm going to go Sierra Nevada Celebration, something we don't make, but I cut my teeth on. Duke's mayonnaise is my condiment, something you got to find on Google for free in a packet as part of the definition.
They sell it here.
I'm going to do discography of Prince, so I get Morris Day in the Time, I get Sinead O'Connor, and that's my answer. All right, who's up?
All right. Condiment.
I'm probably going to go, this is a very Chicago answer, but Jardiniere for a condiment.
Yes! Hot Jardiniere?
Yeah. It's not.
Wow.
No one else is going to be around, so the next day isn't going to be that much of a problem for anyone. I'm going to go Guinness as
bulletproof,
the drink, and then the more I think about it, I'm gonna go with Tortoise for the
Tortoise.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
man.
Tortoise
That
and
is
all
That is Chicago.
the Jeff Parker and Sea and Cake and all of those things for the things to listen to.
Wow.
I didn't think it was going to be that Chicago, but
Yeah.
I guess the beer wasn't. But.
Okay. Boy, okay. So it's so lame, but you stole my beer. So I'll come up with another one because you stole my beer. The condiment would have to be New Mexico red chili. I am obsessed with that stuff.
Is that a brand or just a region?
It's like a region. We had a cook from New Mexico, and they make red and green chili there. So much so that like they have license plates that have red and green chili peppers on them.
Yeah.
Red chili is
It's incredible.
It's the greatest condiment I've ever had. You can put it on everything. I put it on. I brought it. He made me some for Thanksgiving, and I put it on everything. It was amazing. I put it on stuffing. It was great. So that's what I would do for my condiment. Recording artist James Brown.
Nice.
And my beer, which is so funny now that it's going to be the hardest one. This for a year. Man.
Well, you're on an island.
Okay. Well, I guess I got to go. It's a tropical island.
Yeah,
I guess I got to go Fathead's Headhunter then.
Yeah.
If I'm doing a year, if it was the rest of my life, maybe not. But for a year, Headhunter. As long as it's fresh. I'm not getting one drop for the entire year, right? I mean, it's getting dropped
I think
regularly.
it's one pallet.
Yeah.
Oh, is it one beer? It's just one beer, not a brewery's catalog.
Right. It has to be just one beer. One
Yeah,
one
Headhunter. Headhunter, as long as I'm getting regular fresh drops that have been cold chain. They've stayed
I like
within the
this
cold
idea.
chain the entire time.
They know you're there. They're just leaving you there, and they're just bringing you fresh Headhunter.
Exactly.
This is my favorite version of that.
Exactly.
Like a cold chain drone right here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, Gabe, you're up.
I'm gonna go for my condiment. I'm going lime. Okay, because I was
Derby
born.
fighting, acid, cooking
That's smart.
fish.
That's very smart.
Yeah. It's a multi-dimensional.
Yeah.
Lime is. I gotta go Sierra something on it. I just feel like it's gonna show up really tasting spot on. I know you did that too, Sam, but
Yep.
and then we're on island time. I'm going Lee Scratch Perry on this.
Oh.
Just to really keep me in the zone.
You're
Yeah.
you're vibing, dude.
You are vibing. Yeah, you really are. That's true.
Get soon about to make that summer beer again, and then you're cruising. You got coconuts, pouring the beer in the coconut, lime.
You said
drinking it.
celebration, Sam. You said celebration.
Yes.
I've never had Celly drippings, but I feel like that's what I want there, even though I've never had it.
Yeah. Go for it. Just say it then. Celly drippings.
Celly drippings,
That's
the hypiest answer.
We're stamping that in. Yeah. Absolutely.
The unobtainium on the island.
That's true. Awesome.
That's a great question.
Yeah. Thanks, Sam, for the final question. Dig it. We might steal that, by the way. So,
It was a good hang. You guys have a guy very well acquainted with 90 minutes, and you guys made 90 minutes fly by. It was fun.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, and I do have to say, Sam, my wife would be upset if I didn't say. She wanted to say hi from a fellow Delawarean. She's a Delaware City native and thinks you are among the greatest things that Delaware has ever produced. So
It was you and Booty Hunter T-shirts.
Yeah. Well, no, that's technically Maryland.
Oh,
but
sorry.
Yeah.
What about DuPont gunpowder? We started and
Yeah.
we killed a lot of people with our gunpowder.
Saltpeter.
Oh
maybe.
yeah. She's aware. Her husband, her father was
husband's a
was
real
a
guy.
history
Guy.
teacher. So believe me, I've toured Fort DuPont. So it's wonderful. It's great. Lots of fun things to do there.
There you go.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Gabe. Thanks, Mike, as well. Best wishes to Serge out there. I hope he does a good job editing this thing down. And thanks, everyone out there listening. We'll be back next week with more of the... hold on. I'm going to get this wrong. Insiders.
Yep, that's the one.
This is the one. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah.
To never be heard, seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard, seen from again. Remember, this is what we